Welcome everyone to the Remedy Book Club. In this series, we will be looking at other forms of media that have a similar feel to the Remedy connected universe. These can be books, films, TV shows, really anything that gives us the same vibe. The intention of this series is to break down other stories and analyze how they are similar to the games we love. It is also a good opportunity to introduce everyone to other things that you may find interesting if you're a fan of the RCU. There will be spoilers ahead. If you have not experienced this video's piece of media yourself and would like to, I recommend pausing and reading or watching them before coming back. If you would like to be included in the club itself, everyone on Patreon has access to the material in advance so that we can all go through it together. We also have an exclusive area of the Discord to discuss them as we go. With all that out of the way, let's take a look at the 1956 science fiction classic, Forbidden Planet. At what point does humanity's curiosity cross the line from simple intrigue to self-aggrandizing apotheosis? Where is the line that should not be crossed when it comes to scientific development? Is there such a thing? Or have we already leapt over that gap? Storytelling has dealt with these questions for as long as the written word. While it is easy to see how this idea can be applied to those who make use of the dark place, this theme is also pervasive throughout Forbidden Planet. On its face, it is a simple space travel science fiction. The crew are tasked with traveling to a distant planet named Altair 4 to determine the fate of a crashed ship that went by the name Bellerophon. The occupants of the destroyed ship are all dead, with the exception of a lone scientist named Dr. Morbius, his daughter Altera, and a robot helper named Robbie. The mystery of what caused the crew's deaths and what Morbius has been doing for the last 20 years on this planet is central to the plot. Once revealed, it becomes easy to see why this story can be a cautionary tale for certain artists that learn to use the power of a magic lake. But where to start? I debated which would be the best order to tackle this all. Start at the beginning, begin with the mythological allusions, or discuss the backstory first. I chose to begin with the mythology, since it will act as a foundation for the entire story moving forward. Within the first 5 minutes of the film, the underlying theme should be made clear for those familiar with Greek mythology. The name of the star system is Altair. The ship that crashed on the fourth planet of that system is the Bellerophon. Let's pull off the road and take a quick pit stop to go over these. Altair is the brightest star in the constellation Aquila, which is the eagle of Zeus. Before being turned into a bird, he was a mortal king named Periphas. Being so well loved by the people he ruled over, honors that should have been sent to Zeus were sent to the king instead. Zeus became angry and sent a lightning bolt to kill the mortal, but was instead turned into an eagle by Apollo. This occurred just prior to the Titanomachy, a conflict where the younger Olympian gods rose up and seized control of the world from the older Titans. We see a thematic parallel here. It is very likely that this star named Altair is the very same one from the Aquila constellation, a figure who, in myth, represents a scenario where a human king was revered above a god. Next we have Bellerophon. This child of Poseidon has a chaotic history. The young man was banished from his home after murdering a family member. He spent his days in exile, passed amongst the realms of various kings who were intent to have him killed for his crime. One would send him on various trials that he was meant to fail. However, he kept surviving. As a result, the king began to presume that he was a demigod and adopted him into his own homestead to become his heir. However, despite the journey from exiled murderer to hero, Bellerophon was still not satisfied. He wished to ascend to heaven and become a god in his own right. He mounted Pegasus and attempted to fly up into the sky to his own apotheosis. Angered by the presumptuousness, Zeus summoned a gadfly that stung Pegasus. Bucking violently, the horse threw Bellerophon from his back before crashing down to Earth. From that point forward, he wandered the world in solitude, having been cast out by both gods and men. Dropping these two names at the start of the film, it becomes obvious that the writers want us to keep them in mind. The setup for the crew is to investigate what happened to the Bellerophon when it landed on Altair 4. A starship named for a hero who tried to become a god crash lands onto a planet named after a man who was revered higher than a god. With that as a primer, let's shift to the backstory of the narrative next. After some deliberation, I felt it was best to do this section next so the interpretation of everything that comes after makes more sense. Altair 4 was once the home planet to an advanced alien civilization. Remnants of their technology are still present and were uncovered after the Bellerophon crashed. The Krell were a highly advanced species that went extinct roughly 200,000 years prior to the start of the story. There are multiple fully intact facilities under the surface of the planet which are still functioning. Their crowning achievement was a machine that allowed matter and energy to be formed by mere thought. Its field of effect spread planet-wide. While this was intended to be a breakthrough that would make their lives better, in the end, it led to their complete and total extinction. The film's similarities to the Remedy franchise make more sense now. The dangers we see in the Dark Place are mirrored on Altair 4. The Krell released a genie from the bottle in a similar way that the use of Cauldron Lake causes bad things to happen. This is because the genie is overly literal, and what you get is not always what you wish for. One of the characters in the film even calls the machine
Aladdin's lamp in a physics laboratory.
You see, conscious intention matters less than unconscious whims when thought is made real. Impulses, fear, and paranoia are easily siphoned off and projected into the world. After all, no one has total control over their mind. Anyone who claims otherwise is in denial. While the Krell were millions of years more advanced than humans in terms of brain capacity and technology, there is one small thing that they forgot. They evolved from the same primitive beast as every other advanced form of life in the universe. As a result, they bear the same animalistic instincts. A beast caged away and tossed into the darkest recesses so long ago that the Krell did not even remember it existed in the first place. No matter how involved they believed they were, they could not escape this simple law of nature. Their unconscious aggression made real was the ultimate cause of their destruction.
What is the id?
It's an obsolete term, once used to describe the elementary basis of the subconscious mind.
Monsters from the id. A big machine, 8,000 cubic miles of Kleistron relays, enough power for a whole population of creative geniuses, operated by the electromagnetic impulses of individual Krell brains. In return, that ultimate machine would instantaneously project solid matter to any point on the planet. For any purpose, Morbius. Creation by mere thought.
Even the Krell must have evolved from that beginning.
And so those mindless beasts of the subconscious had access to a machine that could never be shut down. The secret devil of every soul on the planet, all set free at once to loot and maim. And take revenge, Morbius, and kill.
In a literal sense, the Krell developed their technology to the point where they became like mythic figures who tried to ascend to godhood. However, instead of achieving unimaginable feats, monsters were summoned from their id and acted as the proverbial lightning bolt that punished them for their hubris, casting them back down to Earth. Myths have expressed this cautionary tale throughout the ages, not only with King Periphas or the hero Bellerophon, but others. In the Gigantomachy, the giant race attempted to stack mountain upon mountain to ascend into Olympus. The people of Babel tried to create a tower that pierced into heaven. One theme is universal. There is a divide between the dominion of humanity and the dominion of God. The Krell stepped over that line and realized they were not ready for that kind of power. Switching back over to the Remedy-connected universe, there are a few characters that have fallen into this exact same trap. First was Dr. Emil Hartman. He too ignored the darker parts of his human instincts and suffered the consequences.
Given my acute awareness of what awaits within, my meticulous preparations, and my considerable education, I believe myself much more prepared than either Tom or Wake. I should be able to cross into that dark realm with the chance to return as they have. All that remains is the dive itself.
Several years after him, we witnessed the Marmonts attempt the same, believing that as scientists, they somehow had the skill to control the power of creation. What they released led to their ultimate demise. It goes back to the same theme as Altair and the Bellerophon. Some things are not to be meddled with. Now that we are on the same page thematically, it is time to start the film properly. After landing on Altair 4, the crew meets the only 3 occupants of this dead world: Dr. Morbius, his daughter Altera, and a robot helper named Robbie. While arguably Commander Adams is the main character of the film, he is not the most important figure. Story-wise, these 3 residents of the planet are far more interesting. So let's take a look at each of them. Morbius discovered the Krell technology after the Bellerophon landed. While most who attempted to sync up to its energy were killed from the psychic strain, Morbius was able to survive it. As a result, he alone gained power to project his conscious and unconscious minds out into the world. For whatever reason, he bore unconscious ill will towards the other survivors, which led to his id summoning invisible monsters. It did not take long for everyone to be killed, one after another. The question that came up here is, why did he want them dead? Consciously, I doubt he did. But our mind thinks in images and emotions. If someone took extra rations, it would incur irritation. If another scientist disagreed with his hypothesis, he would want their voice silenced. If his own captain attempted to contact Earth, he may want to interfere, solely so he can remain and study this dead civilization. Or it could be as simple as he wanted to keep the Krell technology to himself. On the other hand, it could be as simple as he feared there was a danger on this planet, so his mind manifested his fear, which then attacked the others. Regardless of what caused it, the feral part of the brain saw only one solution. All petty disputes would be settled in violence in one form or another, regardless of how trivial they may appear. After all, once upon a time, that's exactly how we as humans resolved things, and arguably, still do. Now let's move on to his daughter, Altera. The Bellerophon had another crew member, her mother. At some point after arriving on the planet, she gave birth and then died. While she was highly educated, she was also naive in other ways since she was raised alone by her father. She was innocent in every sense of the word. All things provided and no strife to contend with. It could be said that in a cognitive sense, she still resided within Eden with no knowledge of good or evil. Robbie is an interesting character. At some point in the past, he was built by Morbius based upon Krell design. Unlike the other two, he is non-human and therefore has no consciousness of his own. There would be nothing to interact with the planet's power. At the end of the day, he is only programmed to behave in a manner that his creator dictated. Depending on how we look at things, he is Morbius's first attempt at creating life. Other than his immense strength, his greatest skill is the ability to create matter from raw molecules. Krell technology required no interface to perform this feat, but Robbie is a physical device that accomplishes something similar. In his case, it is not unconscious whims. Each creation is done with conscious intent. We see between these 3 characters a trinity of potential interactions with the Krell machine. While this may be an oversimplification, we can classify them like this. Dr. Morbius has a mind influenced by the pollutants of life. He is dressed in all black to represent the contaminants. Altera is a pure woman, untainted by a normal life experience. She is normally presented in all white as a result of her mind's purity. Robbie is a neutral party who has no consciousness either way. He is gray, the middle ground between the two. Each and every one of us has minds corrupted by life. Fear, anxiety, traumas, these accumulate as long as we are exposed to the real world. We can only remain innocent within Eden for so long before the serpent slithers into our mental garden. While we may wish it otherwise, it is delusional to believe we can avoid this forever. With this in mind, I have a question. How would the dark place be shaped if an innocent mind entered it? We have seen what happens with complex minds, but never pure ones. Would it become a paradise, the subjective experience reflecting an absence of trauma? An example of this would be Laura from Silent Hill 2. While everyone else projected their tainted cognition, Laura had nothing dark to project. All she saw was a normal town. If we use the Trinity from the film, we have already seen how the threshold reacts to a normal mind like Alan's or Hartman's. Also, how it reacts to a machine. After all, that's exactly what the automatic typing devices in the lake house were. However, since it only copied other people's style, it could only project the same contaminated mindset. Garbage in, garbage out. The arrival of the investigation crew took the stable relationship between the father, daughter, and robot and threw it into chaos. Homeostasis, after all, can only sustain itself until something new enters the ecosystem. Initially, Dr. Morbius wished to deny access to the ship, believing if they landed, they would be killed as well by the monster. At the time, he did not realize the danger came from him, but because he feared this would happen, it eventually did. After being informed that they would contact Earth, he attempted to dissuade them, but his unconscious took more drastic steps. A monster was summoned from his id. It sabotaged their equipment and killed several of the crew members. Morbius's argument against contacting Earth was simply that he did not believe people were ready to handle Krell technology. This is a fair concern. After all, we see firsthand an example of what it does when he uses it without knowing. Upon learning that Robbie can replicate anything, the ship's cook asks him to replicate dozens of gallons of whiskey. Infinite creative potential, and he uses it to get hammered. Sadly, he is an avatar for most of us. Our natural instinct is to satisfy our primal desires: food, money, pleasure, and survival. The next change was with Altera. Earlier, I mentioned she was proverbially still residing in Eden. This was not just a poetic comparison. Based upon how her character evolves, it may be intentional on behalf of the writers. Initially, she had spent her entire life only with her father and deferring to his commands while having everything provided to her. The animals had an affinity with her, to the point where even a tiger was a docile kitten. However, after Commander Adams arrives, her transformation begins. Of course there's an Adam. Upon first meeting her, he notes that her clothing is revealing, commenting that with his men around who had been in space for a year, it would be prudent to cover up to dissuade their advances. The next time he sees her, she has done so. This is a direct parallel to the book of Genesis. After eating the fruit, the first thing Adam and Eve notice is that they are naked and immediately cover themselves. Shortly after this scene, Commander Adam and Altera share a kiss. The tiger, which had once been docile, suddenly turns aggressive and attacks her. Now that she has knowledge of good and evil, the innocent worldview is shattered. Having been expelled from Eden, the reality of things can no longer be naively ignored. We also see her begin to rebel against her father from here on forward, choosing her romance with the commander over a life alone with her father. As an added detail, in Jungian symbolism, the tiger represents feminine power. Once, both she and the tiger were docile, but after crossing that threshold, both were activated into their instinctual power. However, this rebellion sparked a change in Morbius. His daughter was always safe from the monsters of his id because she gave him no reason to resent her in any way. But now that she is becoming rebellious, he becomes resentful. The monster emerges in an attempt to kill her and everyone else. Like all who oppress their shadow, Morbius refuses to accept that he is responsible for all the death and destruction. Even when confronted with this truth, he claims he will not listen. He only gets over this denial at the last minute when his daughter is moments from being killed. Upon accepting that all of this is coming from him, Morbius is overwhelmed with guilt. The monsters turn inward, seeing himself as that which should be punished. As a result, the monster he summoned from his id kills Morbius instead. At that point, the monster fades into nothing, as there is no longer a mind to project it. Just before this, he helps Commander Adams prepare a self-destruct sequence intended to destroy the planet and all Krell technology along with it, deeming it too dangerous for anyone to possess. Forbidden Planet is one of many stories that question whether the human mind can ever be capable of wielding certain power. Some ideas like these bounce around our collective consciousness throughout the ages. It takes a certain degree of respect for a thing to understand it should not be possessed or set loose. After 13 years with first-hand experience in the dark place, I doubt Alan will be quick to make use of the lake again. However, as we saw with the lake house, researchers at the FBC have a history of being reckless with such forces. In the end, it is a good thing their operations were stopped. In the end, it was not even the Marmont's intention for the work that was their undoing, but their suppressed resentment for one another, amplified by the dark place, that spiraled out of control and led to the death of everyone inside the facility. What do you think? Is there a safe way to succeed where Hartman, the Marmonts, and Morbius failed? Or should certain things be left alone? Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed, please drop a like and subscribe to receive updates on future uploads. If you would like to help support the channel, a Patreon has been set up and the link is in the description below. Have a great day and peace be with you all.